What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shooky from Shook Earth Media. Today we got a huge episode of Better Call Saul. Another amazing episode, and of course we're wearing a Breaking Bad shirt because Walt and Jesse were in this episode. We got a lot of flashbacks to the Breaking Bad era in this episode. I think it represents Saul replaying these memories in his mind and drawing some new comparisons that shed new light on some of the motivations behind Saul and what's going on with him in the Gene storyline. So we're just going to get right into it, but if you like Better Call Saul coverage, definitely sub to this channel because we will be covering the final 2 episodes. Only 2 more to go. It's going to be sad to see it go, but this is one of my favorite shows, and it's going out on top. So I'm really excited to see how this wraps up, and if you guys are as well, definitely keep it locked on Shook Earth Media. Hit me with the like. I would love to hear your opinions in the comment section down below. But let's just jump right into the episode. Right at the beginning, we get a flashback to the very first episode that Saul appeared in. The very first episode that Saul appeared in was called Better Call Saul. And now the first episode that Walt and Jesse appear in, perhaps the only episode, we shall see, but it's called Breaking Bad. This episode is called Breaking Bad because of that reason. It's a reference to the first episode that that Saul was in, of course, and it has a double meaning, of course, maybe even a triple meaning. Double meaning because Saul breaks bad, Gene breaks bad, he becomes Saul again, and we will get more into that. But we get this opening scene, it's a little preview for what's to come, and Saul is riding in the back of the RV, and it is great to see the RV again, and we get a bunch of familiar sights. We got the tape on the door, we get Saul looking at what is supposed to be his grave, or what they want him to think is his grave, and of course we know how that scene plays out in Breaking Bad. So then we flash back to Francesca, and I was surprised to see Francesca again. I assumed she would have to be on the run as well, but through her, she is the conduit for understanding some things that happen to characters we know. We get to learn some more information about what happens post Breaking Bad, fill in some blanks from the movie El Camino, so we get to see some information here. Francesca here, this is a funny little scene, a little intro scene. She's got that exasperated attitude. She's got some clever quips. I feel like she's almost taken a little bit of Saul's energy in how she responds to these stoners that are living in her. She owns this complex, I believe. She's the landlord here. They complain about paying rent, but it's because they were shoving drugs down the drain and they clogged the drain. So and she is unable to finish the job because she has an appointment, and we find out about that, and she's paranoid about being chased or followed, and already we're like, what's going on here? There's a statue of a horse here, and I don't know what that represents. She's still in New Mexico. So if somebody knows the significance of this horse statue, definitely let me know. I feel like it ties into the episode because everything with this show is always intentional. So here, she thinks she's being followed. She does a loop. The guy's not following her. And then we follow her to a payphone. And this payphone is where we get a lot of information. Saul is on the other end, and they've apparently set up a means of communicating. He calls her directly at 3 o'clock, and she demands money. He doesn't want to pay her before the information, but she, of course, has the leverage in this situation. So he hid money for her to find, and I think it's funny how it was described. There's a rock that was hiding this fishing wire, and he said it's the shape of New Jersey or the shape of Alfred Hitchcock with a toupee, I think he said. It's pretty funny. We got a lot of funny lines in this episode, and that's why we love Saul. That's why he was such a standout character from the beginning, is because he said lines like that. So we get some information here. We know that Huel is okay. And some of the other characters, she doesn't know what's happened to them. Huel went back to Louisiana, New Orleans, and the last bit of information, the most crucial bit of information, is that she received a call from Kim asking about Jimmy and Saul, of course. And that is enough. She didn't tell Francesca, did not tell Kim anything, but this is basically the inciting incident for the rest of the episode. This is the moment that Saul basically breaks bad. And we're left to wonder a little bit in the next scene here about what transpired in this other phone call. I forgot to mention that Francesca also let us know that Skylar received a deal from the feds and that she evaded prosecution. So that's some information that we got as well. So we got this crossroads. We saw it at the preview at the end of last week. So I forgot to touch on this week's intro. We have the most degraded intro that we've seen yet. It's a lot of VHS effects, and there's little previews of other clips to come in the episode. Right at the end, we see a little flash of the crossroads that we saw at the end of last week. This little flash right here, and that shot comes back in the episode. So this is the crossroad, and as I predicted at the end of last week, this preview represents Saul's crossroads. Will he become Saul again? Will he start doing his old deeds again? What is he deciding in this moment? He's deciding what he wants to do about the fact that Kim wanted to know what was happening with him, wanted to know if he was alive. It got to him, and he ends up going back to the payphone, and he wants to make yet another call, and we are left to wonder what transpires in the call. He somehow found out where Kim works. He has the operator put him through. And we are left to linger outside of the payphone, and we don't really hear what happened here. So I think it's one of two things. One, Kim doesn't work there anymore, and the person won't give him her number. I think that's the less likely, because he freaks out here. He's angry. He smashes the telephone booth. And so the second possibility is that Kim was there. She did answer and told him, don't try to contact me again. If you do, I'll call the cops. I will let them know that you tried to contact me. I will tell them the phone number that was contacting me and all of that. So he really exposes himself here. And by trying to reach Kim, of course, I think Kim is probably motivated to stay away. She already decided to leave him. And now that he is really, really hot, as to use a term that we got last week, that means that she wants nothing to do with him. That's what I think is the most likely thing that happened here. We don't get to hear the conversation. I wanted to hear it. Of course, we as the audience want to know what happened. But that lingering curiosity is really going to get to us. So I like the ambiguity. I think it ultimately works, and we can fill in the blanks on our own. So I appreciate the subtlety here, and so this is the inciting incident. This is what makes Saul go back to his old ways. He is not satisfied with his life, and he is upset that Kim doesn't want to see him. So I think that's what it's a monotonous life that he's living. He wasn't happy before this. The job that they did last week was probably the most fun that he's had in a long time. So I think that he couldn't resist. So even though he put the suit back last week, the new information about Kim puts him even further into a spiral. So Jeff comes in, and Jimmy's there, and it turns out that Jeff bought Marianne a new computer, and they're looking at YouTube. And I appreciate that they're using the old YouTube logo, and that it looks how YouTube used to look, because I remember, because I was on YouTube the first year that it existed. So I appreciate the authenticity there, and I almost want to look even deeper at it, see if we could see some smaller details, because I remember when there used to be a 5-star rating system? I think I see a like button here in the ratio, so I don't know if it's entirely accurate, but I do appreciate it. And there's no ads either. Where's the ad? But they're watching funny cat videos, So I like the flashback. So Jimmy convinces Jeff that they are not done. That despite what he said last week about the fact that they should never have contact again, he has changed his mind. And they are going to start a new job. So that's what a lot of the rest of the episode is about. And basically, we get Jimmy here doing karaoke. And I love that because it throws us into the situation. We have no idea what's going on. I love how we start in a strange situation and then work backwards. We're figuring out what's going on as it's happening. That's one of the big features about the show. And one of the most fun parts of the show is, of course, the scams. So we got yet another scam here. And it's a simple scam. Basically, Saul, Jimmy, Gene, he's pretending to be Victor. And he talks to these guys who have a lot of money and they're investors. And he basically just befriends them and gets them really, really drunk. While he is not getting drunk, he has a bladder that sucks up the alcohol so that he is not as intoxicated as he makes himself appear. So I like this dynamic. This guy is funny. I kept thinking, like, do we know this guy? But no, we don't. So I like, again, being thrown into a situation where we don't know what's happening. And the scam is that the taxi guy, Jeff, is waiting. And he picked a specific shift so that he would be waiting here outside the bar, ready for the targets when they come out. So Jeff gives them water, and then the water is spiked with barbiturates, which makes them pass out. And that's how the scam works. They get home, they fall straight asleep, and then the other guy, who is Jeff's friend, who I was told in a comment section that Jeff's friend was in the scene with Jeff previously, and that Jeff was actually recast. This is a new Jeff. I didn't notice it at first, but now I looked at the old photos and it makes sense. So the fact that I didn't even notice at first is a good sign. So so the scam is that Jeff helps the guy to the door, and then he puts, while the door's open and it's shutting, he puts a piece of duct tape on the hinge, or not the hinge, but makes it so that the door cannot shut fully or lock. So that is how the scam works. So he does that, and then the Jeff's friend has a dog, and he enters the house, and he basically robs them, but not quite. They're stealing identities, and he finds passwords of this guy's accounts. He finds the guy's tax returns, so it's basically an identity theft scam. And for those wondering, I'm pretty sure that he brings the dog here. The dog is very well trained. He tells the dog to stay and be quiet. I think the dog is essentially an early alert system in case somebody should happen to come in. Now, they mention later that they pick these targets specifically because they don't have families, they are lonely, but they have money. And so there's nobody else in the house, and that's how the scam works. So I think it's a really smart scam again, and it's Saul up to his old tricks. And again, I like we got another great montage here with some really fun transitions as always. So one that I particularly liked was when later there's like a grid of the IDs here, and they transition to ceiling tiles. So that was cool. And then we get the scene we've been waiting for. We get the cameo with Walt and Jesse, and this takes place right after the scene in Breaking Bad, of course. Now Saul has their money, and now that he's officially their lawyer, so there's attorney-client privilege and all that. And this scene, to me, it doesn't really give us any new information, but it is great to see. It's a fan service thing. We get to see Walt and Jesse bickering, and it's straight out of Breaking Bad. So they didn't miss a beat here. Costumes are perfectly aligned, I think, and their acting is 100%. Like, they didn't miss a beat. So I really appreciate seeing Walt and Jesse again, and I like this. He pulls up this beaker and he says, "Hey, this would be a great home for a fishbowl." So that's cool. So this is just a fun scene for Breaking Bad fans. It's a fan service thing. but there is some significance to it later, and we'll get back to that when we get to it. But I like how the RV stalls, and this brings back again how in Breaking Bad they talked about towards the end of the show how the RV was such a bad idea, and the fact they get lost in the desert later that season. I think it's season 2 as well. And this is like foreshadowing to that, basically. So he tries to start it, and I like a lot of the Saul lines here. It's just a very classic scene, and I loved it. I loved it. It's hard not to love it if you're a Breaking Bad fan. And then we get the true significance of this scene, which is this smash cut here. And also towards the end, there's another comparison here, but we get, of course, arcing over the grave. I'm like, what could possibly be in there that it would be important to show? But it's not about what's in the grave. It's about the scene transition here. And it's flawlessly done. I love it. So this is basically Saul died in that moment, or Jimmy died in that moment. That was his Breaking Bad moment. That's one of the double meanings of the name, is that the new perspective that we get here is that Saul was basically taking advantage of a dying man by encouraging him, by enabling the crime. And basically, he was an instrument in Walt's downfall. If Saul did not do what he did, Walt would not have gotten as far. He would not have gotten to know Gus. He would not have gotten to know Mike. There's a lot of things that Saul was the conduit for Walt that ultimately helped contribute to his downfall. And he was well aware of the cancer and everything prior to being told that in Breaking Bad. So he was fully aware of what he was doing. And we get an even more direct comparison later. But here we got another fun scene where Saul is delivered his foot massage thing that we saw him use in Breaking Bad, and we see him use later in this episode. And here we got the final scam of the episode. So this guy has cancer, and this is of course a comparison to Walt. And Gene, even though this guy has cancer, he has a sad story, Gene still follows through with the scam. This guy, he takes a lot of pills, and that's how we found out about the cancer. And Saul has a line where he says that he used to take a lot of pills, and we see that in another flashback that we get, that in fact that was true. So a lot of these throwaway lines, or what we thought were throwaway lines of Saul's, actually ended up to be completely true, and they all ended up to be setups, which I think is really smart. They didn't have to do that, but it makes it fun for rewatching. So this is another Breaking Bad moment where Saul already he's back in his old habits. This is the moment where he morally breaks bad, because he has an opportunity here to call off the scam, because this guy says, Victor, do you want to take this cab? I can wait. And all Saul had to do to call off the scam was just get in the cab. He would get in the cab and say, hey, we're calling it off. This guy has cancer. It's wrong. He decides not to. And even though you can see it on his face that it does affect him that he's doing this, but he still follows through with it anyway. And why is he doing it? Why? I think he just can't help himself at this point. I think he's in too deep. I think he doesn't have anything else to live for. I think he's still distraught over Kim, and something about the scamming thing fills that need that Kim brought to his life. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot to analyze, and I think we'll get even more info about that as we go. But Saul is ultimately the creator of his own destruction. So we get this scene here, another flashback scene, and he's on the little massage thing. He's talking to Francesca about whether or not he took his vitamins. So again, tying in with the previous scene to that. Here we got Mike coming in, and it's really funny how he won't talk to him while he's on the thing. So I again like this dynamic, because now we know how they met and all of that, and how they know each other. So the fact that they work together makes a lot of more sense now. We saw everything leading up to it. But here we find out that he's basically the private investigator for Saul at this point, and he's the one who tracked down Walter White, of course. And he advises Saul against doing it. He says the guy has cancer, he's an amateur, he's going to get caught, and he ended up being completely right. But Saul is also right in a way because he sees it as an opportunity. But so this is he knows that Walt has cancer, and basically he's exploiting that. And that is this is his Breaking Bad moments in this timeline. So he has multiple Breaking Bad moments, and that's why the episode is called How It Is. So it's great to see the full set, Saul in his full form, and we get that little bit of extra info about how he found Walt at the high school, because we weren't told that in Breaking Bad. He just kind of showed up. But I mean, it seems pretty obvious now that of course it was Mike that originally found Walt. Now Saul is here watching TV, he's watching documentaries, and he's watching an exercise program because he wants to watch women shake their booties, I guess. And he gets a call, and it turns out that the guy robbing the house found the pills in the guy's pocket, and he recognizes the pills because his dad has cancer, and that connection to cancer that he has personally is enough for him to want to call off the scam. And even Jeff is caught in the middle. Jeff seems like a kind of guy who is easily swayed, and he doesn't really have his own opinion on things. He's just kind of a conduit. He's just there, and he's a temptation, basically. So Jeff is kind of the enabler that Saul is. If Jeff stood up to Saul as well, Jimmy would have just gone home right now. But he has somebody who he can exploit. Jeff is to Jimmy who Jimmy was to Walt, in the sense that he enabled him, let him go even deeper down this path. If Jimmy was never recognized, he would never have gotten to this place. And all these things had to come together. And I believe that this is the moment that Saul gets caught at the end here, because he is personally going to go to the house and rob it. And they also get caught by Marianne. Marianne sees them through the window arguing, and I think that's going to tie in. I think she's going to give up that information to the police. She's going to find out what Jeff was up to, and I don't think that she will stand for it, because she's a normal person and does not like what her son was up to in Albuquerque. So I think she's starting to get wise to that fact. So many things, so many red flags here. Jimmy should know better, but he just can't help himself. He feels invincible as well, because he's never been caught. Pretty much all of his scams throughout the series have worked out, pretty much 100%. So I think he feels untouchable right now. And he doesn't have anything to live for anyway. So he's willing to throw it all away. He doesn't need the money for anything. He doesn't use the money for anything. I don't think he has any goals other than just wanting to follow through with his plans. He can't help himself. So, of course, we get another smash cut, another flashback, and we get the flashback to the moment that Saul pulls up to the school and meets Walter White, and we saw that scene in Breaking Bad. But the fact that there's this smash cut here is definitely representative of the fact that he's basically, the thing he was doing in this scene here is the same thing he's about to do. Morally speaking, he is basically taking advantage of a dying man, and he's going to pay the price for that in this moment. So he pulls up to the house, and then he gets out and he breaks the glass. So I believe he's going to get caught. And the preview for next week shows police getting out of the car, grabbing their guns, and I think this is the end of Saul that we are witnessing right here. So we have 2 more episodes to go. So there's more to it still. I don't know if he's going to try to get away, but I think this is the moment. This is when it all comes to an end. So I'm very excited for next week, guys. I can't wait for the end of the show. It's my favorite show. It's going to be bittersweet to see it go. And I thank you guys for taking this journey along with me. Thanks for watching, everybody. That's it for this week. Definitely stay tuned for next week. We'll try to find something else to cover this week, so stay tuned to this channel. But, of course, next Monday, we'll be back with the penultimate episode of the series. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I hope to hear from you. And with that, it's been your boy Shogi, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.